Welcome back to another edition of the Ultimate Cleveland Fan Show. We have our first non-Ohio guest joining us tonight, and I just heard a story about a Browns backer bar in Switzerland that I'm going to let my guy Halim tell you all about. But first, the Ultimate Cleveland Fan Show starts right now. What's up, guys? Mikey McNuggets joined by Halim in Willoughby, and we have Q down in Atlanta. Let me click this, and our names will pop up in case you were curious as to who was who. Halim, before you tell us your Switzerland story, Q, you're coming at us from Atlanta. You are our first non-Ohio fan on the Ultimate Cleveland Fan Show, but you're from Cleveland. You're from the greater Ohio area, so just a little pit stop or, I guess, life move now to Georgia, right?
Yeah, I moved down here, like I said, probably 10, 15 years ago. Been a Cleveland fan all my life. So you carry that with you no matter where you go.
I know Halim, we have spoken many times before, and Halim, as diehard a Browns fan as it comes, and Halim, you were just telling a story about a trip you took to Switzerland where you tried to get into a Brown backers bar, but didn't go so well.
Yeah, we had a trip and it lined up where the final day of the trip we were going to be in Switzerland, and it was the first game of the season against Tennessee. Unfortunately, that game did not go well at all a few years back. But I called ahead of time to see, because I looked up, I saw a Browns backer bar in Switzerland, couldn't believe it, in Zurich. So I called the guy up and I go, hey, I'll be in Switzerland. I want to come to the bar. Where is it? How do I get there? He goes, we'd love to have you, but the first 2 weeks of the season, from Sunday to Sunday, we actually all get together and go and watch the first 2 games of the year, no matter where they're at. And hopefully they have one in Cleveland. So I couldn't watch it with them, but I did go to the bar there and get to watch it.
Browns are a nationwide fan base. That's what makes doing the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show so fun. Guys, I got one question on last week's game, then we'll pivot and look ahead to this matchup against the Raiders. Q, I'll start with you as your cat joined us. It's also the first feline to join the Ultimate Cleveland Fan Show. F for fan, F for feline. Q, in your wildest dreams, did you see the Giants game going how it did last week?
No, honestly, I didn't, man. And, I think a lot of it falls on Stefanski. I think we have to improve in pretty much every spot on our team. And I think a lot of that falls on Stefanski. When you think about the Giants, you think about really two things that they do above the average for an NFL team, and that's rush the quarterback and Malik Neighbors. Anything to do with him, right? So as a coach, you would think, as a fan as well, thinking about the coach, like, okay, well, I think the Browns are a really good team. We have multiple ways to win. So we should be able to take away just those two things that they do very well throughout a variety of different ways. And unfortunately, we were just unable to do that, right? Like, if I were to tell you that the Giants beat the Browns, you'd probably say they probably sacked Watson a lot and Malik Neighbors probably went off. And that's exactly what happened. And it just seemed like, from sitting on the couch as a fan's perspective, I'm like, okay, after the first time he beats MJ Emerson down the left side of the field, I'm like, immediately, why is not Denzel Ward not on that dude? Why does it take until the second half to make such a easy adjustment? And then after that, Malik Neighbors is silenced for the entire game. So it's one of those things that's just disappointing to me, because there are smarter people than me that do that for a living. And if I can point it out on the couch, why aren't we doing that?
Halim?
Well, Q, I think a lot of it has to do with simplicity is genius in regards to what you're saying, right? It's an easy flip of the switch to get someone like Ward there. However, it's just unfortunately not that simple. A lot of times when coaches go into this first half, they'll even, like in college, when I was there at Ohio State with the team, the coaching staff, and I know it's different in the NFL, but there were a bunch of NFL coaches. They tell you essentially hang on for the first half. Let us sort out what they have going on so we can make the proper adjustments. You wish in the NFL it was faster, but there's a lot more that goes into it than just saying, hey, Denzel, you're going there. There's adjustments that they set up the entire week. They basically put a ton of work in, and they can't, unfortunately, always tweak that on the fly, because then you're going to basically have to redo your adjustments and have enough time at halftime to do that. The way the offensive line gets hurt without Stefanski making the proper adjustments to get us out of 5 wide is really, really tough to watch. 5 wide historically for Watson has been by far his best If you look at his QBR, if you look at his yards per throw, if you look at basically his completion percentage, he's best in 5 wide. So I understand why they went to 5 wide and why they had set up that way before. But once the offensive line gets hurt, you have to go back to what you do best, and you have to pound the football.
It's making an adjustment. That's really what it comes down to. And I just
moving pieces up front make it really tough.
There's some truth into what you're saying about how it's difficult to make those adjustments as fast as you or I would want to see. But at the end of the day, I mean, how many times, how many weeks have we gone in where we all think we should be doing one thing? And it's what teams do historically against, a team that will be going up to face. And we do that thing really well, like run the football or pass the ball short or work in the play action. And it just seems like Stefanski's like, I think they think we're going to do that. So we're actually going to do something completely different and move away from our identity. And that's where we get really weak because it's almost like we don't have an identity at the end of the day. And that can prove to be very difficult to work through when you're going up against good football teams and even bad football teams like we saw last week.
So you're saying, Q, you think Stefanski may try to out-cute the opponent, essentially. He tries to outthink and outsmart. Halim, do you agree with that assessment?
I mean, it's easy to say that now after the start of the season, but historically over the last few years with him as the coordinator, it's been an incredibly productive offense, right? It's been a mess with Watson in there, but his base offense has been incredibly productive. I mean, I think was it last year for the last half of the year was top 5 in the league. So yeah, we can nitpick at him after a loss, but if it's kind of insane if you think about it, we built some momentum at the end of the game. And if it wasn't for one singular drop pass, you could have seen Watson's clutch ability. As bad as he can be, that man historically clutch. If you actually look at the numbers going into the playoffs last year, before the playoffs started last year, he's the second most clutch quarterback in history to Tom Brady. So percentage of games won compared to what you start in your career on the last drive, going into the playoffs last year, he was ahead of Mahomes in percentage of games won where he scores the game-winning drive. And he showed it before he got hurt with the Ravens. So as bad as it was, we could have still won that game. So that just gives me hope for a retweaked and reworked offensive line to get us through till we can get healthy.
Halim, you mentioned the empty sets we saw against the Giants. I actually have the numbers for you for Deshaun against the Giants. You are right. Historically speaking, that's been his most efficient, effective, and frankly, his favorite personnel grouping. Against the Giants, he was 2 for 5 in empty sets. He averaged 3.0 yards per attempt. He got sacked once, but for a 28.6% success rate. He had the most empty dropbacks in the NFL last week. Not very successful in that, and I think part of it is the offensive line struggle, but also he's got to be a little more decisive in his decision-making in those empty sets.
There's no reason you should be getting hit as fast as he was on 5-step drops, especially when it's a 3-step drop. And yes, what that does is puts the microscope on the one time of the 5 or the 2 times of the 6 that he holds the ball a little longer than he should or doesn't get the read right, which I still think he's working on that, right? I think last year and the last couple of years, we've had very, very defined level reads. So based off of play action, you're reading high to low, low to high, depending on the situation. You're cutting the field in half a lot of times in your reads. Now you bring him into more of a spread offense, which he used to be used to, and you're expecting him to make the reads. The coach sees that he can't quite make them yet because he's not used to it, simplifies things down, makes it easier for the defense. So also the offensive line gets hurt. So he can't juke and jive like he did the game before and get out of the pocket and make things happen. So literally just snowballs.
Well, I would add on to that point and say that I would add on to that point and say that Stefanski, similar to JB Bickerstaff, was really good and is really good at winning games that you just don't think we should be winning. He's good at making the best of a hurt roster or without your starting quarterback or with a couple guys out, right? He seems to find ways to beat teams that people would bet would blow the Browns out. It's the same way with JB. I mean, there are times I remember, I think it was last year, where we went into Boston and we didn't have Darius Garland and we didn't have Evan Mobley, and we're beating this like powerhouse team that we shouldn't be able to. But then we start getting guys back and we start getting guys healthy, and all of a sudden this coach just can't find a way to put it together when he has these weapons. And I think part of that is on Watson. Watson, I think, played better last week, but that's, I don't know what it is when I watch it. The word that comes to mind is uncomfortable. That's what comes to mind when I watch Watson play in this offense. It's not that he's bad and it's not that he's great by any means, but he's just kind of living uncomfortable. And sometimes you see him make a great play on his feet and roll out and find something, but that stuff is out of structure. I mean, you rarely see Watson dropping back like a traditional quarterback and just finding a guy 15, 20 yards down the field. I mean, it's usually dink and dunk stuff, screen passes, and playing very conservatively. And honestly, that's just kind of a bigger theme to the NFL this season. I mean, look at Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is playing like a bottom 5 quarterback this year, surprisingly enough, even though he's not. But what they're doing is just playing conservative. And I used to think it was just the Browns until I started to watch more of, teams, how they run their offenses. And you start to see, 5-10 years ago, 3rd and 15, quarterbacks would drop back and try and find 15 yards. Nowadays, even with a guy like Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, it's 3rd and 10, 3rd and 15, you're dumping the ball off or you're running the ball and you're making sure that you're playing conservative and you're not helping the other team out by any means. And I think people get mad at Watson because they think that he's not doing that because he can't do that, but they have to understand that that is part of the game plan. And with a defense like ours, you don't need to be risky, even though that's what we paid Deshaun to do. We paid Deshaun to win football games, and so far since he's been here, I'm sure Mike has the exact number. I know he's got a above 500 record. He's winning us football games, and that's what you want in a quarterback. So,
I believe he's 9-6, technically speaking, as a starter for the Browns. Halim, you said he would just use the word uncomfortable to describe Watson. Do you have a word that comes to mind when you boil down all the things that Deshaun has done and hasn't done this season? Is there one word that you could use to pinpoint how you feel about the quarterback's play? I'm putting you on the spot here.
I would say on a bigger scale, I know it's going to sound funny, I think rebel. And what I mean by that is the reason people look at the offense and go, oh, he specializes in making them do more with less, like Bickerstaff. What that has to do with, in my opinion, is when the team is in dire straits, they go back to what they're good at. And the bottom line is Stefanski's offense, the way it's run, at the heart of it is a Kubiak-based offense, a
West
Coast-ish based offense, a play-action offense, a Shanahan. Thank you. That's the one that didn't come to mind. A Shanahan-based offense where they can essentially, within structure, you used the perfect word earlier, okay? Within structure, go through and make it happen, regardless of who it is. And the dream is to have a quarterback like Watson who's willing to do it, but then when it's needed out of structure, to add that element, which would make that offense unstoppable. He came in and in an interview last year, I believe, said something that was diabolical to me. Like, this kind of went under the radar a little bit. I know you guys did talk about it on the show, but I can't stress how infuriated I was when he mentioned that he doesn't like the scripted plays.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And we have to understand what that really means, guys. First of all, even with Baker Mayfield, we had the most successful offense in the entire league on a first drive of every game. That's because of the type of offense that it does. When you say that, you're basically saying all this work that my coaches are putting in during the week to find the tendencies, I don't care about. What you're saying is when we know, you only know for the first drive of the game because the defense hasn't made any adjustments yet. If we do this, then they will set themselves up in this. So if we're on the right hash at the 30-yard line in this formation, we know they're going to show us this specific front. That was my job at Ohio State. I was a student coach. Me and the other student coaches would watch the film of the opposing team's defense for our offense. We would literally put their defense in our offense's like language to know what fronts they're going up against. You do the analytics based off of that, and you give it to the coaches. If we show them this, they will show this back. Remember when I told you, hold on until we make an adjustment. That's how defenses typically work. So you know that if you show them something, they're going to show you what they're used to. He isn't willing to play within that structure. So they fired an entire staff and they said, have at it. We're going to give you your spread offense. If he doesn't figure it out in a few weeks, you got to put the reins right back on him, get back in your old offense, and do what you have to do to win games. And you're going to have to come to the realization 8 games in by the bye week. I believe it's 8 games, right?
I think it's 9 games. It's week 10.
9 games. You're going to have to come to the realization he can't run this offense either. He hasn't figured this out. We're going back to our old stuff with our stud running back. By then, the offensive line will be back and healthy, and we have to roll downhill, and he's going to have to bite the bullet or sit on the bench.
Well, we got a few weeks till the bye week here at week 10. Let's focus on this Raiders game, guys. Both teams coming off a loss that probably shouldn't have happened. The Raiders, 5.5-point favorites over the Panthers. Andy Dalton ends up throwing for 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. First quarterback in the NFL this season to do so. The Browns, 6.5-point favorites at home against the New York Giants, end up losing by 6. Q, when you look ahead towards this matchup, 2 hungry teams, 2 desperate teams, frankly, do you like the Browns' chances coming off this loss against the Giants to rebound and put a much better performance on tape against an opponent who it's a one-point line, so essentially Vegas is saying it's a flat-out pick 'em?
Yeah, I do actually. I trust Stefanski. I mean, Stefanski's record coming off a loss. Obviously the same could be said about last week, we won against Jacksonville, but he's good at making adjustments. He's good at bouncing back and rallying his team. I think, excuse me, honey. I know that Watson made progress at the end of that last game. It wasn't just the drop. It was also the fumble. The Browns had a chance to win the game, or at least, get the go-ahead touchdown. We fumble the football. Then we get the ball back, and Deshaun is still firing. And we get to that horrible set of downs where Jameis Winston is in the football game at 3rd down. So I hope that if you remove the boneheaded stuff, then you're able to win these football games. And I think that if you don't, I go back to exactly what I thought last week, and it's like, man, I don't see any way that the Raiders can beat the Browns unless Max Crosby destroys the game and or Gardner Minshew has another crazy game like he did last year. So I hope and I have faith in Stefanski because he is the coach of the year. He's the reigning coach of the year. I have faith that he can take that stuff away. I do. And Deshaun doesn't need to play amazing to win this game. I would like to see another step. I would like to see him continue what we saw him continue with. He's just such a slow first half player. So while it was slow last week, I still would like to think it was another positive building off the Jacksonville game. It was still good in the second half. And for the people that think that putting Jameis Winston in is going to do anything, it's not. Deshaun is our best option. I trust if you trust Stefanski and you trust the coaching staff, they're the ones that are watching these guys in practice. They watch them through training camp, right? If Jameis was that much better than Deshaun, he would be starting no matter the money or anything. He would be starting. He's not. So we have to figure out a way to win with Watson, and that's on Stefanski.
Halim?
It's all about the offensive line. Plain and simple. There's nothing else. They played like crap in game 1. You saw what happened. They patched it together for game 2. We saw what happened. Game 3, the injuries. I mean, you had your center playing left guard. You had your backup center in. Your right guard goes in.
You had your fullback at center. We have to. Nick Harris is a fullback now who is at center. And I saw a stat, Halim, I'll let you finish your point. The Giants blitzed on 57% of Deshaun's dropbacks. That's more than Shane Bowen, their defensive coordinator, has ever called the blitz.
They never blitz.
From a schematic standpoint, the Giants had one up on the Browns last week. They did not see that coming. That was completely off tendency. And the offensive line, to your first point, was just not good. Like, there's no way to kind of hide it. We got Zach Zinter starting at right guard with Wyatt Teller out. And I thought he actually did a pretty good job.
He did.
All things considered, in his first real NFL action last week. I'm excited to see what he can do against this Raiders front that has Crosby and Christian Wilkins, 2 pretty premier pass rushers from the outside and the interior.
So I want to hone in on something you said there. And I want to push back on you guys on the main show earlier today.
Please.
the talent level is unbelievable on this team. It is unbelievable. We could have still won the game. We're one drop pass away from being in a good situation to get down there and score. And we lost essentially the entire offensive line. Our quarterback looked like crap. The only thing we had is 8+ yard runs from our running back. Just completely scattered team, complete nonsense. And we could have still won that game, which is absolutely wild. I understand when the season goes this way, that all of a sudden you look at the talent, you go, he's old and he's bad. And all the prickly pear stuff comes out, right? We're frustrated. The bottom line is we saw it last year. This team is deep. I know everyone feels like Botonio's old. He goes to left tackle, has one bad rep the rest of the game at left tackle.
He's pretty good the rest of the game.
No one else can do that. By the way, one big component, again, offensive line. Our right tackle still fully recovering from that injury. He is, I would put him, and I'm not exaggerating, when you watch the film, 70-something%, 80%. If people say he's out of shape, he looks exactly in the same shape as he did last year, guys. Like, the guy threw up in preseason camp his rookie because he wasn't in shape going into the season, but it didn't matter because of his size and ability. I still think he's still recovering. We all know he had the same MCL that took Wills until last game to come back to. He came back maybe too early. Who knows? It's on the offensive line. If they can make it happen, I think they'll win this game. I think they could win by 10 points. But if the offensive line comes out and it looks like it did last week, we will get destroyed by that pass rush. We might get lucky because their best pass rusher is hurt. So is ours, but ours seems more of a machine. Did you see the quote from their offensive coordinator today where he said, even if he's hurt, he's still the best player in the league?
Miles is an alien. I tweeted this out.
That's what their offensive coordinator said. He goes, even if he's hurt, he's still the best player in the league.
He's incredible. He's incredible.
So that's what it comes down to. Their pass rush versus our offensive line. Everything else, I think we have the advantage.
I'm curious if Vegas will dial up the blitz again. There, so far through 3 weeks, they're the fifth. How do I phrase this? They blitz at the fifth highest rate of any team in football. And seeing what the Giants did, it's a copycat league. I would assume it's going to be a copy and paste defensive game plan from the Raiders. Their defensive backs leave a lot to be desired, but I have to imagine the Browns will be more prepared to handle all that blitzing than they were last week, where it completely caught them off guard. Q, what are your thoughts on the offensive line?
I just don't think DeJuan Jones is going to play as bad as he played last week. And I just think, even though we are on our second, string of men here, second to third string, like having at least those last couple of quarters really to gel together, at least hopefully find some ground that you can build upon for this game. And then if we're still in this scenario, I mean, I remember during the offseason after we re-signed Cooper, I mean, that was our last thing, or we extended Cooper rather. We're talking about how the Browns have the largest cap space in the league, right? This is the situation that you would want from the money side if you have glaring issues on your team. So if we can't find an issue for basic pass rushes and basic packages with blitzing, then we need to bring some more people in here. And I know that offensive lineman is such a scarcity. I mean, think about how many great pass rushers we have across the league right now, how many freaks of nature that we have. It's not just Myles Garrett. I mean, there's almost one big name on every team. And if you there's not really that the litter to pick from if you're looking for offensive linemen. So, but at the end of the day, you got that money, you got to bring some people in, you got to try something out. So until some guys get healthy, because that is the biggest glaring issue that I see on our team, and I don't want to put Nick Chubb behind that when he comes back in a couple weeks.
The fear I have is right now Stefanski doesn't have enough bullets in his clip. What I mean by that is, you notice something that we did against the Giants in the fourth quarter. It started working really well, that we would have done the second they started blitzing us in previous years. We have top 5 screen game in the entire league. We've had it since Stefanski's been there. He can run 50 different screens, tight end, running back, left tackle screens. Like, he can run unbelievable screens. In this offense, we ran a draw that you noticed got us some of the big yards late in the game. We ran 2 screens, and it was too late. I'm worried that he doesn't have enough. And one of my cousins texted me, goes, "You told me your biggest concern about this offense in the offseason is we just won't have a screen game." We don't have a screen game. And that's the nature of this offense. Bubble screens, first of all, no one's using them right now in the league because of the way the defenses are running, right? That's what you would run out of this technically. So
that's more spread friendly than your traditional, halfback screen or tight end screen.
Exactly. And then they're way too obvious. And you're making them too obvious when you're condensing your offense, and you're making them too easy to defend when you're spread out the whole game and then you condense to do it. So they need to bring out another version of the screen game. They better get creative, or else it's either bring out the version of the screen game, quick pass, hot reads, or go back to the old offense and ground and pound them to death. Those are your only two real choices, and that's not a fun place to be in right now.
No, it feels like their backs are against the wall. It's time, guys, for our bold predictions and game picks. Q, I'll start with you for a bold prediction. Halim, you're going to go second, but then you're going to follow it up with your game pick first. Then Q, you'll wrap us up. Q, give me your boldest prediction, your hottest take, whatever you want to call it for this Sunday's game against the Raiders. Can be player, can be team specific, but give me one hot take, bold prediction you have for Sunday.
My hot take is that it's going to be a great game for Watson. I feel like every single week people pick that, but I haven't. In my friend groups when I'm talking, I haven't. I thought the Giants had a good defense, and I think the Raiders have a good defense. But I think Deshaun's facing a lot of criticism this week, and I think he's going to come out and have a good game. But my hottest take is that even though he has a good game, we're still going to lose, and we're going to lose to the Oakland Raiders. The Las Vegas Raiders. I think it's going to come down to a field goal. The defense is going to play well, but they're going to lose 28-25 game against the Raiders.
Did not see that coming. Halim, hot take and prediction.
Hot take is Elijah Moore is going to have 5 catches for 85 to 90 yards.
That is hot. It's not a whole lot of yards in the grand scheme of things, but for Elijah Moore, Halim, that's scorching hot. Turn down the stove. Be careful. Touch at the back of your hand.
Yeah. I genuinely think that. I think things will figure themselves out. I really do. That's my hot take. I think he'll have 5 catches. My game prediction. I'm an eternal optimist, dude. 27-17. Brownies, the defense shows up, shuts them down as it should. I believe that Ward on Adams the entire game is going to be incredibly helpful. I think seeing Minshew last year do what he did to us, I think we'll be more ready for his running ability. And I think our depth on our defensive line is extraordinary. And they didn't do anything on offense the second half of the game last game. This defense is actually played better away from home week 1 than they had, or week 2 than they had the previous year. I don't see this team, the Raiders, scoring more than 17 points against us. And I can definitely see us get rolling with some momentum downhill, especially if we utilize the running game the right way.
Full disclosure to everyone out there, we are taping this. It is 7:01 p.m. on Thursday night. My parents are coming in tomorrow. So we usually tape it on Friday. We did it Thursday this week. So you haven't seen headlines yet. That's going to come on technically tomorrow's UCSS. But yesterday when you see this, because this is going to air on Saturday, I also picked the Browns to win. Everyone else picked the Raiders. And this is the first time I've ever seen G. Bush, when he hands in his headline, he just looked defeated. G. Bush looked like he had lost hope. The Kool-Aid had run dry. And that's how I knew I made the right pick. Because the Browns, since I've been in Cleveland since 2022, when you feel good about them, they underdeliver. And as soon as you're ready to hop off the bandwagon and turn your attention to the Guardians and the Cavs, they reel you back in. You just can't quit. And as bad as last week was against the Giants, and as disappointed as that outcome was, they're not that bad. I refuse to believe the Browns are as bad as we've seen through the first 3 weeks, offensively, defensively. Yes, the offensive line is in shambles, but they're just not that bad. They still have talented pieces. Pochich has looked like a shell of himself the last couple of years, guys. But Tonio, he may be getting old, but it's not like he forgot how to play football. DeJuan, yes, he's still coming back from that injury. And is he 400 pounds, 380 pounds, 320 pounds? I have no idea. but he's better than we saw last week. So I am holding on at least one more week. I don't think the Raiders are that good, and I think the Browns are desperate. And after hearing the quotes from Amari Cooper today, hearing the quotes from Deshaun and Stefanski and Dorsey, it feels like I get a sense that they know the pressure's on. And we're going to see if this team's what it's really made of and how much leadership and, for lack of a better word, cojones this team kind of has. So I'm picking the Browns in a close game. But I think to your point, Halim, earlier, we're going to see a very similar game plan to Jacksonville. I think they scrapped the spread. They're going to run the ball a ton, and I would take the overs on all the Jerome Ford props in this game. But what do I know?
Yeah, I was very pleased to see Jerome Ford's ability to run out of the shotgun. I was very impressed by that. I have been this whole year. He's better out of the shotgun than I expected. I think he's way better out of the shotgun than under center. So I hope we just beef up that front, throw as many offensive linemen at tight end as you have to, and let's go. What do you guys think about the possibility of Njoku actually playing? He practiced today, limited, but he practiced. Let me get feedback from you two. I mean, that to me is an absolute game changer. It has nothing to do with how many catches I think he'll get. I just think the attention he'll get will be extraordinary. What do you guys think about his potential to play this week?
He's huge. I mean, he's one of our biggest playmakers. He's one of our best players on offense. I really like our screen game with Njoku, and I want to see more of that. It was very prevalent last year, especially towards the end of the year. We really relied on that on third down, really any type of screen. Like you were saying, we really just haven't seen that this year. I'm not sure if that's something that maybe Watson just isn't comfortable with because he likes lining up empty. But at the end of the day, I think we need to switch some stuff up, and we need to add some of that stuff back in, especially against more aggressive looks. So when they're stacking the box, if it's just too high, you got to take advantage of that screen game. You got to get the ball out of your hands quick and not just the slant route because you're going to have that linebacker in the middle. So I want to see more of that. And, I want to see just one of our receivers one time burn somebody. Like Elijah Moore is quick. I just want to see him get off the line and burn somebody down the field. Not Amari Cooper lulling somebody to sleep, although I do love that. I want to see one of our receivers just absolutely burn somebody and have Watson just connect on a nice deep pass for once. I mean, think about how long it's been. I mean, I guess we had that 30-yard pass to Cooper last week, but it's a while since Watson just really reared back and threw one up for one of our guys, and they caught it.
Arizona last year.
Yeah.
Yep. I was going to say.
Here's the thing. I will say a couple things. Just big picture, guys. For all the fans out there that are really dreading this and suffering right now, this is a new offense. Nobody wants to think about it that way because we're not going to give this team any excuses. The truth is the truth. They're still figuring it out. The other thing that has to incorporate itself, and if it doesn't, we're firing the offensive coordinator. I mean, if we don't start motioning people to give our quarterback an idea of what coverage he's facing, that's the reason you motion.
Yeah.
You need to know if it's zone. You need to know if it's one high. You need to know if they're going to send somebody. Why? That's how you create your mismatches. That's how you know who's your hot read. We don't have it. No one's motioning.
Too many penalties. Too many penalties with all the movement, man. I mean, I'm telling you, and I don't know if that's a player thing or if that's by design.
So,
I mean, there's so many pre-shot motions that they call sometimes, and it's like the referee is just waiting to throw the flag. And as soon as we call the flag is out. And I don't know if that's something that Stefanski is just designing the plays poorly sometimes, or if that's our guys not knowing where to line up.
He's not designing the plays. That's what people need to also understand. The offensive coordinator is designing the plays. That's the bullets in the clip. Stefanski's using the bullets that he has available to him. And I think the entire offense is learning. But as far as the motions are concerned, if we do not start moving people across the formation, it's very simple. You can set them. You can wait until they set before you're moving it. But you're giving your quarterback a lot of help by moving people so he can see the defense react. So you can get the eyes of the safety somewhere else other than just what they're focused on. You have to move people. If you do not move people, you are going to just continue to get your quarterback destroyed. That also helps the offensive line when you move people.
I didn't see the numbers from week 3, but week 1, the Browns were dead last in the NFL in motion pre-snap and motion at the snap. In week 2, they were middle of the pack, but considering
I think we were last again.
Last week they were last again
in week 3.
Well, I think we see much closer to a Jacksonville game plan than we will against the Giants. Halim, Q, appreciate you guys for joining us here on the Ultimate Cleveland Fan Show. Q from Atlanta, Halim from Willoughby. Let's go Brownies. Let's hopefully celebrate a win Sunday night and have a victory Monday. We'll see you guys on the postgame show at the 2-minute warning. Peace.